Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff. And I'm super excited for today's beer because it's kind of a beer I've never had before. Well, we have Ecliptic. I've had a bunch of their beers before. Fort George Brewing. I've had a bunch of their beers in the past. We'll get into that in this review. A black cold IPA. I dig me some cold IPAs. The cold fermentation process, or is it I always forget, honestly, what is it? It's lager yeast at a higher elevation, or ale yeast at a lower lagering temperature. Anyway, I dig cold IPAs. I don't know if I've seen a black cold IPA. So you're talking about, Cascadian cold ale instead of dark ale, dark cold ale, dark cold IPA. I don't know. Anyway, Ecliptic and Fort George, two kind of Kent Pulley breweries from out west. We have story time on the side here. It says, brewed with our friends from Astoria's Fort George Brewery. This black cold IPA is fermented with lager yeast and genuinely dry hopped with Idaho 7, Nectaron, and Citra, bringing citrus and tropical notes. I like my black IPAs to have a little bit of mean mug and resonness to it, so we'll see what's what. Finishing dry and crisp with a hint of roast, this beer is perfect for chilly night of exploration in the final frontier. Classic collab astronauty stuff from Ecliptic. This is coming in at 7% alcohol by volume. It probably has a little bit of time on it. I don't know if I can't really make out anything on the bottom of this can. It's been kind of rubbed away. But they sent this to me, and I want to say I got it probably a month and a half ago. Their beers can sit a month ago, so probably 2 months, give or take. Black IPA, we should be all right. I have not had a Fort George beer in quite some time. Fort George. So when I used to do my radio show, not my podcast, which technically I still do. I actually have a podcast and I can't. I have to need to post because I'm dumb. It's a really good one too. I did the radio show. We had Fort George on, and I have them. I hate saying this. I have them on in the podcast, and this is a long time ago. This is probably over 10 years. Maybe no, it's probably about 10 years ago. They didn't make hazies at all. And we're just trying to talk about hazy culture, and we didn't have the owner on. We had a brewer on, head brewer, and it just you could just feel the disdain for hazy IPA. And I flat out asked, I'm like, will you ever make a hazy IPA? They're like, no, Fort George will never make a hazy IPA. I have it on record. Now, people change their mind, people shift. I'm not making fun of that person. It's just funny for someone to be, I don't know, that way about something. And they make a bunch of hazies now. So that person could not even work there anymore. Anyway, label-wise, it's all right. It's astronauts. Talking about black IPAs. As far as this beer goes, it does not look like a black IPA in any form or fashion. When I think of a black IPA, and we're going to assume cold black IPA, that you hear that coming out of my mouth, even though I'm just saying black IPA. This looks very much like a brown ale. I know on camera that probably does not look like brown to you. But to me, it very much is like a dark shilling ale to me. It doesn't come off as a roasty, toasty, almost like porter-esque kind of black IPA that happens to be a cold version of that. Is it a bad thing? No. But it almost like skirts to the point where it's a red ale. Again, coloration, it's hard to see on camera, but I mean, you have a pinky finger of that kind of slightly caramel tinged kind of head to it, and it's rich, almost mahogany body that comes off quite a bit darker from y'all, or for y'all. It's a nose. And it honestly comes off more like a brown ale for me. I'm not getting a big hop note here. Now, it'd be, full disclosure, like I said earlier, this beer probably is about 2 months old. I don't think that's a long time for beer. I don't think it's a long time for a black IPA. It says 2023, so at the worst case scenario, it's 6 months old. But it's probably, I'm venturing to guess, around 2 months old. It really comes off as a slightly malty kind of brown ale. A decently malty, with a little bit of a fruit component to it. Like they said on the label, it's a little more fruit leaning of a hop schedule. To me, kind of black IPAs, I typically think a bit more roasty toasty. Even though they talk about roasty in here, I'm not getting a big roast in the nose. Even you're getting a little bit more darker malt. There's no kind of resinous characteristics. It's almost kind of like a given for me when it comes to a black IPA. Now it's a West Coast version. They might be wanting to do their own thing and be all kooky madooky. I don't know. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. That is weird. It's not negative by any stretch. But my brain can't compartmentalize it into a style. There is a roasty component to it. That's absolutely there. There actually is a resinous component to it. That is there. There's a fruity component. It comes off a little bit kind of... I don't want to use the word bubblegummy, but it's probably the best descriptor I can think of in a moment. Like a subtle washed up kind of bubblegummy. And mouthfeel's nice. It's sub-porter level, which is typically what I associate with like black IPAs. It's a weird beer. Not a negative beer. I actually find it very appealing just from a flavor standpoint. In that it's piquing my curiosity. So, let's just go back to old school analytics. Soft, creamy mouthfeel, washes out a little bit thin. You get that bittering pop almost immediately, if not right after that mouthfeel. A little bit of roasty toasty, subtle, soft, very gentle chocolate notes. And that little bit of juicy fruit, kind of subtle, kind of bubblegummy vibes that I was talking about earlier. Bittering lingers on your tongue. Done and done. It finishes and drinks a la cold fermented beer, a la lager-esque kind of beer, lager-esque kind of Kolschy beer, but not necessarily just super snappy and clean. But everything here comes off a little bit kind of, and I've talked about this previously in a bunch of different beer styles, it comes off a little bit kind of disconnected. That each individual flavor or experience is individual of itself. It's not one cohesive, kind of experience where it's it's just this mashed up amalgamation of deliciousness. It's like everything here is a tasty bit, but it's just it hits you in individual waves to where it's I'm getting this, and then I get that, and then I get that, and then I get that, not just washed over you as a fulfilling, all-encompassing kind of experience. Again, people watch this and be like, this dude's just pretentious AF, and I don't even know what he's talking about. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's the case, but that's what I think. Yeah, not a negative beer by any stretch. Is it a black IPA? No. Is it a cold IPA? Sure. Is it a cold black IPA? Fine. It has attributes of a black IPA to it. To me, black IPAs tend to be a little bit more. This is a little bit more subtle. Now, is that the cold portion of the show kind of just tempering a little bit of bigness in the beer? Could be the case, but it's also, 7 and change. Or is it just straight 7? Straight 7. I expect a little bit more robustness to it. So it comes off as if someone made a cold black IPA that was 5%. If we're going to get on that high horse, that soapbox of ABV, they typically get on. But at the same time, interesting beer, fun beer from the experience of something new. So there you go. I don't know what else to say. I'm not going to classify it in one of the better whatevers. It's a fun beer and I enjoyed the experience, and just say Ecliptic and Fort George. Have you had their beers? Have you had their beers individually? Have you had this collab? Have you had this specific collab? And my finger's stuck in the can. Have you had, because I wanted to push on a tab and I missed. Have you had Fort George Hazies? Because I'd like to hear about them. I've never had one. all that fun stuff down there. So there you go. A review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed a little black IPA, cold or otherwise. Hope we'll see you next time. Fridge. Cheers.